Let's do Tonglen for a world that is falling apart. So on the in-breath, you breathe in whatever particular area, group of people, country, or even one particular person. Maybe it's not this more global situation. Maybe it's breathing in the physical discomfort and mental anguish of chemotherapy. All the people who are undergoing chemotherapy, and if you've undergone chemotherapy and maybe out the other side, it's very real to you. Or maybe it's the pain of those who have lost loved ones suddenly or recently, unexpectedly, or over a long period of time, someone dying. But the in-breath is you find some place on the planet, in your personal life or in your something that you know about, and you breathe in with the wish that those human beings or those mistreated animals or whoever it is, that they could be free of that suffering. And you breathe in with the longing to remove their suffering. And then you send out, I often say, just relax out and send enough space so that people's hearts and minds feel big enough to be able to live with their discomfort, and their fear, or their anger, or their despair, or their physical or mental anguish. But you can also breathe out for those who have no food and drink. You could breathe out food and drink. For those who are homeless, you could breathe out, send them shelter. For those who are suffering in any way, you could send out safety and comfort. So with the in-breath, you breathe in with the wish to take away the suffering, and you send out with the wish to send comfort and happiness to the very same people, or animals, or nations, or whatever it is you decide. So do this for an individual, or do it for large areas. And if you have more than one subject in mind, that's fine. Breathing in there with the wish to relieve their suffering, and on the out-breath sending them relief. And just keep breathing in deeply and breathing out. Taking in as fully as you can, radiating out as widely as you can.
Now I am going to lead you in a suffering meditation. We will examine the book of Job in detail. Now relax and focus on your breathing. Make sure to think about what is being said and how it might apply to your life. Keep in mind that God knows what you're going through. In Job's suffering, God is aware of Job's obedience and suffering. We often feel isolated when experiencing suffering, so it's important to realize that God knows our pain. Although Job did not fully understand why he was suffering, he knew God was aware. Because of this, he trusted God and did not lose faith. In the same way, we should trust in God when problems arise in our own lives. The good news is this: God limits our suffering. With Job, God set limits on the suffering Job would experience. This shows God's compassion and his desire for us to love him. While we do not know the limits that God has set for us, we must trust in him. We must trust that he will protect and save us. God is the one in control, and faith in him will eventually save us. One important thing to keep in mind is looking for a way to grow out of our pain. To do this, we must consider how we react to the suffering we experience. Looking to improve through pain is very important. If we constantly complain and make excuses, we are doing nothing to change the situation or attempt to solve the problem. Job was ridiculed by friends for the suffering he experienced. They blamed him for his suffering. They believed he was being punished for sinning. Job's belief in his innocence made it impossible for him to see beyond the injustice for quite a while. But God has a plan. Trust in him, and God's plan will eventually reveal itself. Sometimes it takes quite a while to understand God's plan. We, as human beings, try to understand his plans, but cannot grasp what is occurring. The problem is, sometimes there is not an easy answer to why bad things are occurring. For example, Job's suffering had no easy explanation. He didn't have some horrible sin that led to this suffering, like his friends believed. We must understand that bad things actually do happen to good people. This is difficult to reconcile, but we must try. God has a plan, and we need to believe. So, what we must do is accept and trust God. Job was depressed and didn't understand what God wanted, yet he still trusted God's will. We must all do this, even in the face of suffering. God has promised us life in the resurrection, and we must trust that our suffering is not eternal. Trust in God is easy when everything is going well. It is in the hard times that we really need to show our faith. It is tough, but it is what God asks of us. One promise God makes is an eventual judgment. So, while we think times are tough or unfair, we will eventually be rewarded for our faith and trust. Job realized evil men were living good lives, but he also realized God believes in justice, and everyone will get their reward, or punishment, in the end. In the end, the point is to learn the lesson God is teaching. With Job, God wants to show us that he wants us to become like him. Through Job's trials, he came to know God deeply. He prayed to him and trusted him despite his losses. He became humble and passionate, all through the works of God. He learned the lesson God was teaching, and was better for it.